Welcome to the Grand Review, the show where we talk about movies and movie-related things. I'm your host, Garrett Ray, and joining me, as always, is the fantastic Andy Delia. How you doing?
Good. How are you today?
Doing all right. A little sleepy. I don't know why, except that, my wife was coughing a lot last night. She's been sick. Poor woman.
That's understandable.
No, I'm kidding. Like, that was happening, but I think I really was just sleeping because something happened last night that left me really depressed, and I'll get to it.
Okay.
But something left me really depressed last night.
Watching If.
So yeah, if you've never been here before, or your first time joining us here on the show, basically what the Grand Review is we sit down and we give you as much information as we can to help you make an informed decision on whether or not a movie is worth your time.
Right.
And with the caveat being that we have our own preferences and our own things. We try to be as objective as we can, but we also, if there's something we just don't like because it's something that's like a personal thing, we'll throw that out there.
Right.
Give you that context. But we do a spoiler-free review, and then once we kind of give you an idea of like, hey, recommend or not, we'll go into spoilers and talk about it more deeply. This one, I have a lot of kind of spoilery stuff to talk about, and this week's movie is If, which is short for Imaginary Friends. And you may have heard of this, you may have not. It is directed by John Krasinski, stars Ryan Reynolds, Kaylee Fleming, and a bunch of names. And essentially, the plot is that the power of imagination is so strong that schizophrenia becomes an airborne disease. And all of the imaginary friends people had as children begin to take over the world. So that's the basic premise of it. That's not, but anyway. You had a different watching experience for this than I did, because even though we were sitting next to each other, would you like to just kind of...
I was extremely tired. I had a full day at the theater. I got home, did not get my nap like I needed to because I'm old, and was nodding off during parts of this film. Yeah. So,
percentage-wise, how much would you say you think you missed?
Probably like 20%.
Okay, so not too much. Well, then, no. You mentioned earlier off mic. You said something to the effect of, I felt very confused when I came back.
Yeah.
I got news for you, man. That's not because you fell asleep.
That makes me feel a lot better, so thank you, Garrett.
Goodness. Okay, so do you want to... We normally let you give your thoughts first. I see no reason to break with tradition now.
Just the film felt disjointed. Mm-hmm. It was strange. And not to like... Normally, I like strange films. I do, like, especially stuff that I've seen in the past that I've loved over the years, like David Lynch, David Cronenberg. Those films, like, they're always horribly bizarre. This was just creepy weird. And the premise of it seemed a lot more innocent and childlike than the actual film turned out. Mm-hmm. To the point that I was, like, scratching my head going... Why am I not getting more complaints about this at the theater from parents taking their little kids to see it?
Interesting. Yeah.
Because it's not, I don't think it's horribly meant for little children. It deals with some very heavy adult subjects, and kids, honestly, in my opinion, don't need to be exposed to this. Go watch Garfield.
Yeah. Which you also fell asleep at.
Well, that's for different reasons. That was just because it's an awful movie, in my opinion. Yeah, I saw
so far. I've seen kids are enjoying it though, like Garfield.
Yeah, they are.
It's up their alley.
It's the cutesy movie that little kids will enjoy. I thought it was funny. I don't like reading movie reviews, but I do. Even though I hate them.
Yeah.
And yet I'm doing a podcast
now
about
we're part of the
reviews.
problem. Yeah.
Right. So the first thing that I had read about the Garfield movie was that this is everything everybody feared that Super Mario Brothers was going to turn out to be.
Really?
Yeah, like that it wasn't going to have much story, that it was just going to be fluff and just kind of stupid.
Yeah.
That's Garfield.
Well, the range that Chris Pratt has.
Well, he was in Super Mario Brothers too.
I was going to say, from useless fluff to surprisingly good.
No, but Mario Brothers, when I saw that, I liked it. I liked the story. I was never a big game player, But the story they created out of that, I thought was original. It was cool. The graphics were amazing.
Yeah, it looks really good.
And yeah, like I'm looking forward to the second one, to be honest. Yeah. And one of my favorites, Anya Taylor-Joy, is one of the voices in that too. Yep. So it has my attention.
You have no idea how much it pains me to say that I enjoyed watching that, knowing that it's an Illumination movie.
Why?
I hate Illumination stuff. Man.
Why?
Oh, it's just mindless garbage.
See, I like the Despicable Me films and the Minions.
I watched the Minions movie, and it is intended to be an anthology, series of vignettes and stuff. But I just, every moment of it, I was like, we didn't need this.
But the Despicable Me films have gotten more away from the Minions and more on the actual characters.
Yeah, I did think the Despicable Me 2 was pretty good.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that one.
And I liked Migration. I
haven't seen Migration, so that's...
Migration I thought was really good.
Okay, yeah.
It was good for my son too, because my son is so afraid of things, and that's like the main part of the story for Migration is getting over your fears and going outside the box and doing things that you normally wouldn't do.
Yeah.
That I thought that message for him was really good, and it was really good in general.
Okay.
It was cute, it was funny, and it wasn't annoying.
Okay.
So that's... Yeah, you should see that. It's actually pretty good.
I did see the trailer and went, actually, that kind of looks okay. I think there's enough of Illumination's repertoire that to me just felt like I could feel the corporate, this will sell toys angle on it, and it drove me up the wall. I hate that stuff.
Yeah, but what kid film doesn't? Disney does the same thing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But Disney, I don't know, it feels different. With Illumination, it feels more in your face, where they're like, look,
and I'm the opposite.
The Minions now have names.
I think Disney shoves this stuff more in your face than Illumination
Really?
does.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that gives good context for kind of where we're coming at this movie then, and kind of our taste then. Okay, before I talk about If specifically, I want to give a disclaimer.
Okay.
I like John Krasinski's work.
I do. Yeah, so do I.
I think he's a very talented man. I do not think on any level that John Krasinski is an idiot.
No, I don't need, like A Quiet Place 1 and 2 I really like.
They're fantastic. And he's done some other stuff that I've enjoyed as well.
Like what, just The Office?
Well, I mean, he's probably one of the better parts of The Office, which I'm actually not a big fan of. I've seen the whole thing, but I watched it out of obligation.
I like him in a movie that Meryl Streep and Alec Baldwin did called It's Complicated.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's Complicated.
His character stands out in that very well.
And then there was one called Homeland or something like that, where it was him and Matt Damon were both in it, and it was about them trying to get some small town to do fracking and how the effect that had. And anyway, he good performance.
Promised Land.
Promised Land. That's right.
Yes,
that's what it was.
Yes. I remember that now.
So I went into this movie having seen the trailers and going, "Oh, that looks like it's kind of up my alley for just something funny and goofy." And
I thought the same thing.
I think Ryan Reynolds is entertaining to watch and probably one of the worst humans ever born. We walked out of this last night, and my wife Hannah turns to me. She goes, "Is there anything Ryan Reynolds in where he doesn't look like a total jerk?" I was like, "Well, no."
Okay, but meanwhile, I met him the one year at CinemaCon and got to shake his hand and told him like Waiting is one of my favorite films that he ever did.
Yeah,
which is generally Clerks in a restaurant.
Yeah,
but it's really funny. But it's also another raunchy comedy. And he's very subdued in real life and very down to earth and very nice. So
I imagine that's probably true. It's just like if you only watch his movies, you would expect him to be like the frat bro,
right? And he's not at all.
Okay, well,
but then again, I want to tell him, Green Lantern, what were you thinking?
He holds the same sentiment, I'm sure.
I
feel like at the end
does.
of Deadpool 2, he kills himself for it.
And that's, I think that's why he maintains so much control over that Deadpool franchise, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Before we get too derailed here, I just want to say I very much like John Krasinski's work.
Yes.
That being said, and knowing how difficult it is to make anything, as someone who does filmmaking, it's incredibly hard to make anything. This movie was well intentioned.
Yes.
I didn't like almost any part of it. I was desperate for it to end. And the reason why, and I really think you can tell that it's well-meaning the whole time, but it is a disjointed, unclear mess from a script point of view.
Yeah.
And it feels like there are pieces missing, and also it's too long.
And it's funny that he says that he wrote this for his family too.
Yeah,
I was
did.
like, does he not like his family that much?
Well, but that's the thing, though, is like you can feel like when you're watching it, you're like, okay, he wants to talk about this real stuff, and he wants his kids to, to love imagination, and like, I that comes across, but at the same time, the thing I kept thinking is, with a slight change to the notes in the soundtrack, this would be a horror film.
Just about.
There are so many shots and moments where the buildup and like, think back to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Building up to the wardrobe. It's this unknown, and then like when she finds that she can go through and stuff, that could be a terrifying experience, but there's just something about the way that it's shot and edited and scored that makes it feel like wonder.
Right.
And this is constantly blasting music at you, telling you, look at the wonder, but it never is quite right. I was more horrified by this than most of the moments in The Invisible Man.
The newer one with Elizabeth Moss?
I was more on edge in If than Invisible Man. That shouldn't be how it is.
Here's the thing too. Even the imaginary friends that are supposed to be cute, cuddly, and very appealing to children, they have so many like baggage of their own. It seems like that. Yeah. You're infecting this on children, really?
Yeah.
Why? You're wanting to elevate kids to like a happier place and be part of their lives, not to completely put them in therapy once they turn 12.
Yeah. Yeah, and there is enough of that stuff where it's like I don't think you have to shy away from real things in kids movies. There's obviously, Land Before Time made me cry as a child, and I turned out okay. It's the other things that happened in my life that messed me up.
Well, or even this film really deals with death in your face, and it's not subtle at all.
And yet shies away from it in ways that I think ruined the entire movie.
Right, I agree. And it was like, okay, you have unleashed Pandora's box, and now you're going to completely disacknowledge it during the film? Why?
Yeah, you've opened Pandora's box, and then you've tried to throw it in like a burlap sack and just shake it around and go, see, it's fine.
But there's films that deal with death, too, with children. Like Bridge to Terabithia, I always thought was one of the best examples of that. They handled that subject in that book so well that even any kid can watch that and understand what the emotions are, what the characters are feeling, and what is really going to happen, or how everybody is going to react to something that's tragic in their life. And I think that film does it just amazingly.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing. This doesn't. It is. It's so odd how it purports to be a message of hope, but in the end is a message of escapism.
Right.
And I think that's actually unhealthy.
Right.
And so, look, what else do I have in my notes here? Just because I want to get into spoilers so bad.
I can relate to that too, because my mom died when I was 12, and I reverted into a wall around myself too, and did not share feelings, did not communicate with people, and I am not the better person for it. It has taken me many years to get over that and undo the damage that I did to myself.
Yeah.
So seeing something like this is really, you don't want to say to your kids, oh, this is okay to just escape from reality and deny everything that's going on around you.
Yeah. And like on one hand, kids do use their imagination all the time, and we play with toys, and we there were plenty of times as a kid I was like, we're driving down the road, and in my head I see a little man jumping over all the obstacles on the side of the road. That's fine.
I think kids are a lot smarter than they give them credit for it too, I think they're going to kind of read into this movie a little bit more and figure it out on their own, and kind of look at their parents going, really?
Yeah.
Why am I watching this?
Yeah. And like, I think there's enough whimsical, fun sort of stuff in here that kids will enjoy it and have a good time, and that's fine. But I can't help shaking that there's just this edge to it that is, it's just off. It's off in a way that's really, really tough to hammer down. I mean, it's definitely most of the performances feel very stiff from the actual human.
Well, even
characters.
Ryan Reynolds.
Right, yeah. Weirdly enough, like not
and I
charming
mean,
in this one.
he's supposed to be like the most enlightened, like charming person in the film, and he's not.
No, and it's well, we'll get into that. We'll get into Cal's character. It's definitely a and then this happened movie.
Yeah.
There's not so one of the main tenets of screenwriting is that you need to in a scene, a character has to make a decision that makes the next scene happen. That does not happen in this movie.
No, not at all.
They do something, and then the next scene happens, but it's not because of a choice made by the main characters who are driving the story. And so it feels like you're not with them emotionally at any point for real because they're just experiencing something that's happened apropos of nothing.
Well, and it's a shame too because there's a lot of good, talented people in this film that just seem to be wasted.
Yeah, and again, like I'm tight and like cringing at saying this because I didn't want that to be what this was. I was primed to love this going in.
Our film buyer told me before we got it that it's not what you think it is.
Yeah,
but he really liked it. And I kind of went back to him today and go, "Did you watch the same movie I did?"
Did you?
Because he's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Because I really just didn't care for it at all."
Yeah, I wanted to. I mean, I like the trailers. I thought the trailers really, they sell it as a different tone than it is.
Right.
Which reminds me of like, Stranger Than Fiction. The tone of that was the trailers was like, oh, it's a crazy, goofy comedy, but it's actually a really heartfelt, kind of introspective movie.
See, and that's, Stranger Than Fiction is a good example of, I don't like Will Ferrell for the most part. I don't like most of it, but I love that film.
Yeah.
Because it's not a typical Will Ferrell film. And the whole play with Maggie Gyllenhaal and him being like the straight-laced IRS auditor and her being like this free spirit hippie, cookie baker, right? And just how his life changes and how his watch ends up saving his life.
Yeah,
I just think it's a great film,
and I think that's kind of the tone this was going for,
and
but it falls flat. And I don't want to sit here and say that literally about any movie. There's except for Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. But I'm rooting for movies to be good because I love movies and I know how difficult they are to make, and like you don't want anything to fail.
Well, and especially since we had just seen Furiosa and both of us really liked it so much. Yeah. And, we're going to, the next film, yes, this is going to be another big blockbuster May film that they come out. Yes, we're going to like it. It's going to be easy to like.
Yeah.
And no.
And it just wasn't. Yeah. I think the best, I wrote it down because I wanted to remember exactly how and I learned a new word this week and I wanted to use it. It was both saccharine and cloying. Cloying meaning overly sweet and not idealistic, but oh crap, I didn't learn the word well enough.
Do you need to get out your online dictionary?
No. I remember. Hold on. Let me just pull up in my brain. It's excessively sweet, rich, or sentimental, especially to a disgusting or sickening degree. That's what cloying means. And I remembered that and did not look it up on the internet. Don't ask.
I'm not even sure it goes that far. Yeah, it's overly trying to appeal to kids to the point that it's uninteresting.
Yeah, I think what I'm talking about more is just this... somehow it both deals with death and doesn't at all, and refuses to talk about it. And we'll talk about that more in spoilers, but it's constantly trying to be that fun, quirky little girl-led film, and it's not. And so the tone of it feels disconnected from the main character's performance, and I'm not gonna harp on her. She's a child actor. Leave them alone.
But she was good. I really didn't think like she was that bad.
I could feel the acting.
Yeah, but she's a kid.
She's a kid. Yeah, I know.
So give a little bit of suspension of disbelief to that.
All right, but we had just watched the performance of the little girl who played young Furiosa, and it's day and night kind of difference.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to give her a hard time. Too. Absolutely, and I think perhaps that performance is a direction that she was given. As far as If goes, and so I wouldn't even blame her. If I was like, oh, this was not good. If that's what I was saying,
right.
I'm saying it was kind of like always the same. There was always this very closed lip smile on her face all the time, and I wonder how much of that was
Forced
or I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, in general, young kids will probably like it because it's got silly characters and some very, very well done. I do want to say like the VFX in this and the characters, frameworks did all of that work, and especially Blossom, the character that is the kind of old 1940s style animation character.
Oh yeah, like Betty Boop style.
Yeah, she looks fantastic the whole way through. I mean, there's some incredible artistry going on. The guy who was the cinematographer on this, his name, and do you know who Janusz Kaczynski is? Because he has made almost every Steven Spielberg movie since Schindler's List. So
wow.
The same director of photography for Schindler's List, War Horse, like all of the stuff that Steven Spielberg has done, shot this movie too.
Huh.
And you can tell, like, it looks really good.
Yeah.
But also it looks creepy sometimes because it's like the lighting is so fantastical in certain moments, and I like the way it looks, but then I don't know, it's just like it's off. It's off from what feels right.
Well, especially when Ryan Reynolds' character is sneaking into a little kid's bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're really cringing at that as soon as you see it.
Well, you're cringing at that, and then you're cringing because this little girl is hanging out with this unknown man in his late 40s. It's like, no one's questioning this? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but would you recommend this?
No, actually, I wouldn't.
I don't think I would either.
I can't with what the film initially intended to be and what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
I would caution parents, strongly that what you think this is going to be, it's not.
It isn't. Nope. It's and it's not a crazy feel good funny comedy for kids.
If you want that, go see Garfield.
Yep. Okay. Well, spoiler warning. Let's get real deep into spoilers.
Okay.
And we'll see how much of this you remember and how much of it you are asleep for.
Even if I don't, you'll never know.
Yeah. Totally fair. Okay, so first off, big spoiler warning.
Yeah,
I pegged really early on that Cal was B's if.
Oh yeah, that was obvious.
There's a lot of clues, and I think the thing that made it like super obvious was when Louis the bear says, his job used to be to make you laugh all the time, and he goes, not anymore, and so that like solidified it. But I figured it out before that even. It was basically the first scene where she meets him for the first time, and I was like, okay, this guy's not real. And then that was very heavily telegraphed throughout by, he never directly interacts with any other human characters.
Right.
They try to throw you off a little bit with the scene where they're auditioning ifs for Benjamin, the young Korean boy. And he's saying things, but she always repeats it. And so it's not necessarily hidden. I don't know if it was intended to be or not. It wasn't a big reveal though. But for some reason for her it was. The moment that okay, so let's talk about the stuff that doesn't make sense.
Okay.
So were you? I wasn't looking over at you, so I won't. Do you remember the part where they go to the retirement home for the first time?
Yeah.
Okay. So they get in there, and it did have one of my favorite moments from the movie, which is where he goes, "You never know what's going to be behind that door," and she goes, "Are some of them scary?" He goes, "Worse. They're desperate." It's like, that's a great line, classic Ryan Reynolds, delivery.
Yeah.
But once they get in there, they talk to Louis for a second, and then all of a sudden, her imagination, she can redesign the entire retirement home for the ifs, and it's like, are you?
So it's almost like you have photographic memory when you're 12. And how is that possible?
Right? Yeah. It doesn't make sense either, in the sense that this is a retirement home for everyone's ifs. Why can she walk in there and change the environment entirely herself? Just because she's a kid with imagination, I guess. But
Ryan Reynolds' character couldn't.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I guess that's another hint that he's an if you want to look at it that way. But I don't think I can give it that credit. And and that scene becomes about Ryan Reynolds going through all of this stuff. Cal, sorry. It becomes about him going through all of these changes and not liking it and whatever, but the movie's not about him.
No.
And so it's like it loses focus about that entirely, and it's just like, oh, every now and then we've got a shot of B walking there, you know, smiling real big because look, the knights have swords and dragon, and look, now it's not carpet, it's tile in the hallways. That's what an imagination. And so yeah, man, I just that whole sequence was where I checked out because it felt to me like I don't know what the rules are. And neither does anyone else in here. It's just whatever you want it to be, which makes sense for a child playing in their imagination, but makes no sense for a film.
Right.
It's frustrating to you because you're like, I don't know why she can do this. Earlier, they make a joke about, or she says, "You're the chosen one." He's like, let's not give her a complex. But was that a joke?
Yeah, but it not? I didn't think they revisited that very well at all either, because it just kind of went out the window.
It's never mentioned again. Later it becomes, well, I can help you because I'm a kid. Okay, great.
Yeah, not a big reveal.
And that's the other thing too, is like 10 minutes before that, she said, "I'm not a kid." And he goes, "Well, that's that." And so, you know, you think her character arc is going to be that she has to accept that she is a child, and even though she's been through this trauma with her mom dying and all these things,
right,
that it's her working back to letting herself be a kid again. But then 10 minutes later, that's resolved. But then they act at the end of the movie when she goes to see her dad after he has his operation, like that's when it's resolved. But it's not. It was resolved 45 minutes ago, and we've sat through all this visual menagerie of useless crap that means nothing to the character.
Right.
And I know that sounds like I'm being really harsh, but like this is how I would look at something I wrote. And that's how I'm approaching this. And I was so frustrated by it because the rules didn't make sense. I couldn't root for her because from the very beginning she could just do whatever, but then she can't for no reason.
You couldn't identify with it at all.
Yeah.
There's nothing to really grasp onto as a viewer of this film.
Yeah. But like you should be able to.
Right.
It's not that the idea's bad. It's
especially with the subject that it's dealing with.
Right, yeah. But I think what it needed to do, and this was the thought I had last night leaving, was that it was unfocused in the sense that it didn't have, it didn't have a set of rules that you could really latch onto, and sometimes it seemed like it's focusing more on Cal than B, and you're like, I don't know. But also, it was unfocused in the sense that I think the traditional way to do this is you focus on one of the ifs. And they kind of do that with Blue a little bit. But well,
since he's the one that's predominantly featured throughout the entire film.
Yeah.
And that's probably because Steve Carell is the voice.
Yes. So. Yeah. What I think it should have been is once she meets Blossom, I think it should have been about her trying to find Blossom a new home, and it's more focused on those two characters. Mm-hmm. And when she finds out it was her grandmother's, her grandmother's if, then it's like, okay, well, that's where she can learn that maybe reconnecting with your childhood doesn't mean you're not an adult. It just means that you're allowing yourself to be a child at heart. And I think that's more of a healthy message than what we got at the end, which was everyone who had an imaginary friend now is being reconnected with their imaginary friend, and they're seeing things in the parking lot. They're seeing things in the boardroom. They're seeing things as they, go to get croissants or whatever. But it's just like, this doesn't look like people reconnecting with their inner child. It looks like a person having a psychotic break in a parking lot.
That whole croissant thing didn't make any sense to me either.
Oh, it was just because the boy that Blue, that made up Blue, lived above a bakery that his parents owned. So he loved croissants. So that was like why that was a memory trigger for him.
Okay, so it really wasn't important at all.
No.
Okay.
No. Also, and I'm I just want to look back around real quick and say I feel really bad about this because I watched a bunch of behind the scenes stuff today and saw John Krasinski talking about this, and like Blue is purple because that was a thing when he was a kid. I think it was maybe his grandmother. They kept telling him that his favorite color was purple. He's like, no, it's blue. And after 2 months, he just gave in and was like, all right, my favorite color is purple. But so like Blue is purple because of that. That's a very personal thing for him.
Right.
You can tell this is a personal movie. He made it for his kids. He says that, and you can feel it. But man, I just could not get on board. And part of it is because there's no focus on like the character of B. B is a vehicle for us to jump through these imaginary scenarios.
Yeah, but it's very underused at the same time. Like there should have been more of that, and there wasn't.
Well, and speaking of things there should have been more of, there's no stakes. There's no stakes. They establish early on that if the person forgets completely, that the ifs will disappear. Well,
but what
that never happens.
What is the result of that?
Yeah, and there's no time in the movie where you feel like there's actually any danger if these ifs don't find a new kid.
Well, because they don't even show, like you said, there's not even one episode where one of them disappears and then they're gone, and then that's because that person didn't believe in them anymore. Mm-hmm. That's why they're not here anymore.
Right. Yeah.
There was none of that. So you're right. There's no
and there's so many ways you could have done that. You could have just someone just like you see them with their bills piling up or whatever, and the if tries to do that, and the person puts their head in their hands, and you just see them like lose any sense of innocence from their eyes, and then the if disappears. Or maybe the person dies, and then the if disappears. Or maybe someone just gets hit in the head with a crowbar, and it causes cranial damage. Something. Give me anything to let me know that this matters. I don't care what it is anymore. I was so desperate for there to be just some reason for me to care.
Yeah.
And I feel terrible saying all of this. I don't like that this is how I felt, but that's what the movie did to me. Like when I said I felt really depressed last night, it's because, okay, look, John Krasinski is a talented person who's made things that I very, very, very much enjoy.
Maybe if he threw an alien in this, it would have been better.
And then the other thing is, like, this is a very personal movie to him. You can tell he cared about it. There's a lot of passion in this, and you can tell. And it still turned out
flat.
Well,
that's the best way I can put it.
He's twice as talented as I am on a good day. Like, what hope is there for me to ever make anything? And that's why I got depressed, because I was just like, you really can fail no matter what. and that's a depressing thought. And so this movie kept me up.
There's always good directors that have a bad movie. There's always one in the woodpile.
Sure.
Depending on how far back you dig and who you're digging into, too.
I don't have to dig far in my woodpile.
But even like Scorsese, the one that I could pick that he did that felt short was Kundun. And it's the one film of his I really don't like.
I have not seen that.
And that's,
and I've seen Silence, so.
I actually liked Silence.
Silence is very good. It's very long, but it's very
right.
good.
And that makes more sense than this movie did sometimes.
Yeah.
Silence, I can understand why it didn't catch on the way it did, but just because of what it deals with.
Yeah.
But it's still a really good movie. Whereas Kundun shows the story of the Dalai Lama, and it's very much not that you really, you almost don't care like what happens or how the story progresses. Yeah. And it's not that good.
And that was exactly how I felt with this, because there were no stakes, and because I was confused from the get-go, because the opening sequence I was on board with, because it's this, kind of looking at handy cam footage of them and their family, and they're in this apartment,
Tina Turner
and all of the the imaginary stuff, and her running around with this jetpack, and I was like, okay, cool, like I'm on board. This feels fun, and we're establishing an emotional core. Great. And then the next thing that we see, after her, her mom obviously dies of cancer from her bandana and stuff, that you see, they just kind of hint at it. But then the next thing you see is her B arriving at that apartment and finding out that she hasn't been there in a long time, and it's confusing because there is nothing about that opening sequence that implies that they're at their grandmother's, except that her grandmother shows up in one shot.
Right.
And this seems like really nitpicky, but I think it is indicative of the symptom the entire movie suffers from, which is, why didn't you just explain that a little bit more so that it feels real?
And I almost thought that John Krasinski, like her dad, was an if there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because of the goofy things that he's trying to do with like the IV stand and the stuff in the hospital. But there's no, sense of doom that he is in any kind of mortal danger at all.
If he's not an if, then he is at the very least someone who was replaced as a child by some sort of malfeasant fairy folk.
Right.
And is not a human being.
Right.
He's a trickster. He's Loki.
He's supposed to be having heart surgery and he's hooked up to one IV cord.
Yeah.
I ended up in the hospital for a week and a half because they thought I had cancer and I was hooked up to multiple machines. I couldn't move.
They're not going to let you dance with a heart condition.
Right.
I don't know, man. And it's like, I'm willing to suspend my disbelief, quite a bit when I watch a movie.
Yes.
Furiosa survived an RPG attack and falling onto a crumbling cliff. And I didn't complain about that at all.
And gnawing her hand off.
Gnawing her own hand off, yeah. I mean, that at least is going to give you sepsis.
Yes.
But it's not that I can't let go of reality enough to enjoy something like this. It is that it is so unconcerned with establishing the rules of its own universe that you can't care because you can't track.
Or some sense of continuity.
That too.
There wasn't any.
And the apartment thing is a big deal with that one. It's like, she goes, "Oh, you haven't been here since you were this big." And it's like, well, they lived here, didn't they? Why? Like, there was nothing, and it's not a hard problem to fix. In the beginning, you just, the first thing on the handy cam, you show them arriving to grandma's. Mm-hmm. That's all you do. And be like, welcome to Grandma's Wonder Emporium, and she's playing into the imagination thing, and you see that that's encouraged. It's one shot, and you fixed it. But there's so many things where, like, just a little, show someone getting whacked in the head with a crowbar and their if disappears. Right. And okay, we have stakes. Like, they either have to find a new kid or they leave.
I'm the one that likes horror films, and you're making all the references. I find that very interesting.
I'm an odd duck, Andy.
Well, I already know that.
Well, that's
why you and I are together on a podcast.
Yeah, because we quack each other up. I'm so sorry. I think this movie should have been about being and Blossom. Honestly, I think that should have been the kind of emotional through line. Or at the very least, they should have dumped B entirely, and they should have just made a movie about Cosmo, because Cosmo is the best part of this movie. I can find anyone anywhere. His animation is incredible.
Yeah.
His look is fantastic. The performance is so funny. Cosmo was hands down. I want to see a Cosmo movie. I know there will be no follow-ups to If. I understand that. But if someone somewhere can get the rights to Cosmo and make a Cosmo-centric animated film, I would freaking love that.
Yeah.
Forget Sonic. I don't want another blue hedgehog running around with James Marsden or whatever. Get James Marsden being harassed by Cosmo. That's great. That's good stuff.
Or you know really what it was missing?
What?
A bunch of mercenary marauding hamsters, like, after.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you know what? Screw everything. Let's make G-Force 2. I'm in. Dang it, you beat me to it.
Yes. I gotcha. You're rubbing off on me too. You realize that was making that.
I'm very sorry for your spouse. So, speaking of spouses, I wrote down B espouses the entire message of the movie to her dad at the end. And I'm not good at segues. I hope that's okay. But she sits down and she talks to her dad and Count tells her to tell him a story, because saying goodbye is hard and facing reality is hard, right? And she says this whole speech is this long diatribe about how her story is about this little girl who was afraid to imagine anymore, or she couldn't let go of the one person who made her feel safe and all that stuff. And it's like, is she talking about Cal? Is she talking about her dad? We don't know.
Right.
Sometimes it's kind of muddy, but the message that she says the movie is giving to the audience is not the message the movie gives to the audience.
Right.
It thinks it is. It acts like it is, but it's not.
No.
And I mean, just I like that the kind of twist on things was for them to say, well, maybe these imaginary friends don't need new kids. They need their old kids to remember. And okay, well, that's interesting and different maybe than what the purported solution to the problem is at the beginning of the film. Fine, okay, do that.
Yeah.
The problem is I'll tell you what the problem is. The problem is that the way that they actually go about doing that, the first time they do it with Blue and his kid makes sense and feels like, okay, he just remembered this part of his childhood and the croissants brought this up. And so it felt like, okay, I can see that. But the rest are literally, he feels Blue's hand on his shoulder, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't see him. But the rest literally see and stop what they're doing as their imaginary friend appears in the world in front of them, and that's a horrifying prospect. Can you imagine if you, right now, at the age you're at, you walked into work and you sat at your desk and you were doing stuff and you're like, oh, man, life's really hard. And you turn around and there's, I don't know, what was your imaginary friend as a child? Some 900-pound gorilla who's purple. I'm throwing things out here. I don't know.
I don't even remember.
How horrifying would that be? I don't care if you turn around and you see SpongeBob SquarePants himself. I'm gonna crap my dax. All right, I'm gonna poop in my pants right there because that should not be there. And it's just, oh man, I wanted to like this. I really did.
Yeah, well, so did I.
The ending also makes no sense. Benjamin, who is the young Korean boy that she meets in the hospital, he was funny and cute, and he's he's very young, so I'm not going to say anything about anything
his acting ability or anything like that.
He is very cute, and my wife said he's incredibly cute. So full pass from Hannah, and that's all that matters, at least in my life.
And I like the dragon that he got paired up with.
But that doesn't make any sense. And I'll tell you why. Every single other if we see in the movie gets reunited with their child who's grown up, right?
Right.
And when the person remembers, they start glowing. So we have established that this glowing thing has something to do with them being remembered.
Uh-huh.
Why does that happen to the boy who had no if, and an if just shows up out of nowhere? Why was he not crapping his dax? It didn't make any sense.
Because I guess he really wanted to see a dragon. That was perfectly okay with him.
I guess, but it doesn't jive with what they were showing us before. Why does that one fly up and show up? Yes, I like the design, and it was perfect design, and there's a lot of.
And once again, we weren't faulting this movie for technical reasons or anything like that. It was the story and the
sum of all the pieces.
Yeah, nothing made sense and nothing fit.
Yeah, and but I was, when I saw that dragon start glowing when Benjamin looked over at him, I was just like, okay, so you don't even know what the rules are at the end. Like there's no, that doesn't make sense. Yeah,
because honestly, I didn't notice him glowing.
Yeah,
to be honest,
right before they cut, he starts to glow just like the other ones did from his heart space or whatever. I don't know. The if does, not Benjamin.
Well, he had no frame of reference to this thing to begin with.
Exactly.
So, okay. So I see what you're going with this.
And there's just so many instances of that sort of nonsensical reasoning,
gibberish,
and it that became frustrating.
Yeah. Because if you're going to make the rule for one, it should be uniform throughout the film, not just for certain characters.
Right. Yeah. I'm not going to say I didn't laugh or that I didn't have any fun with this movie, because there
are some parts that are really funny that are I hate to say this, but the gummy bear farting and
I'm going to make you feel worse. Do you know who plays the gummy bear?
Yeah, it's Amy Schumer.
Yes, it is.
Who I can't stand.
I laughed at that and was like, yeah, okay, farts. I laugh at a fart joke. I'm not above it. But then I found out I was Amy Schumer, and I was like, I actually hate myself a little bit right now for laughing at that.
Well, there was a time and space where I actually used to really like Amy Schumer until she started doing the same movie over and over and over again, and to the point that it's not funny.
I just saw a couple of snippets of her stand up, and that was enough for me to go.
I've never seen her stand up.
You don't want to.
Okay.
If you're into, and I'm trying to think of the G-rated way of saying this, if you're into someone talking about the aromatic bouquet and possibly disease-ridden status of their undercarriage, then have fun. Enjoy Amy Schumer's comedy, because that's all it is.
See, because like Trainwreck, I liked.
I didn't see it,
and not a shock. because, the self-loathing alcoholic that has a low self-opinion of herself, and it's very hard to maintain a relationship with that. I get that from a male perspective because, there's times I feel the same way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But when you do that 3 films in and it's the exact same storyline, it doesn't become funny anymore. It becomes you need to find something else.
Yeah. Show me. And like as a performer too, wouldn't you be bored with that?
And that's where I have a problem with most of Melissa McCarthy stuff too. She plays the same idiot. All I do is swear and I'm a heavyset woman. Yeah. No, there has to be a point, and I've seen her do things outside of that are amazing, like St. Vincent. Mm-hmm. I really like that film, even though she's not in it a whole lot, and it's not focused on her, and it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be about the relationship the boy has with Bill Murray, which is kind of disturbing when you think about it in a way, but it's still a very enjoyable film. Uh-huh. And it stays consistent all the way through. Or there's a film that I saw with her called Can You Ever Forgive Me? And it's based on a true story about a woman that was a writer, that was a failed writer. So she forges pieces of letters from famous people throughout history and starts selling them to gain money and notoriety. And then she eventually gets discovered that all this is fake and it's not real, and the repercussions of all that. And it's a very interesting, very real film where it's not meant for laughs. It's meant to be a drama, and it's really good.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that she needs to find more roles like that. So these people that end up falling into these traps of doing the same characters every time, I get very tired of it quickly.
Yeah. Well, and what'll happen a lot of the time is that someone makes a train wreck, right? The movie Trainwreck, not if. And someone makes a movie like that, and that person's star just jumps to the top of a IMDb, right? And then it's like, well, let's greenlight 3 or 4 of these movies that are similar because we know it made money, and everyone's trying to get their little chunk of change off of that because it's popular.
And that's what happened with Melissa McCarthy. It was Identity Thief, which I hate that movie with a passion.
I think I was all right with it, but I haven't watched it in a while.
And it's because I like Jason Bateman.
I do too, yeah.
And Extract, you gotta love
Extract
that.
Extract is something else, man. Extract's good.
And that's a Mike Judge property too,
which is why it's good,
right?
Mike Judge is, man. Do I agree with everything he says ever? No. But boy, he's funny. He knows how to do a satire.
He can write stuff like Office Space is still a classic.
Office Space is great.
And especially when you have worked in it, like I used to work at a bank and back office stuff, and when I lived in Pittsburgh for a while, and I can pick every person that is in that film, who I worked with.
Yeah,
and so can a lot of people that work in that environment. That's why that movie works.
Yep.
But it was a flop at the box office. That movie didn't find a life until home video.
Man, I tell you what, I will never ever get out of my head the delivery of "Watch out for your cornhole, bud." Yeah. Never, ever.
Dietrich Bader,
Dietrich Bader's great.
Right. And he doesn't even find work anymore. I haven't even seen him in anything.
He does a lot of voice acting stuff.
Oh, he does?
He's been Batman in quite a few projects, too.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. Yeah, man. I think
this definitely is a film that you want to like and want to stick with, but the problem is that there's too many holes in it and too many things that are inconsistent and too many things that don't make sense that you just go, okay, what did I just watch, and do I need to watch it again to make sense of it?
Yeah. Well, you definitely would need to, and still would not find that it helps much.
And probably not.
And that's the part that okay, well, I can abide by all of that, but you want to know what the real issue is?
What?
They missed the opportunity for a joke that would have saved it at the end for me. So at the end, spoilers. At the end, she runs back upstairs, finds that the place she was going in was not real. It was all in her imagination, right? Mm-hmm. And then she finally sits down and she goes, "If I just close my eyes and remember, then I can be there," or whatever it is she says. And when she opens her eyes, Cal's there, dressed as a clown,
right?
Which is the imaginary friend she had as a child. They hint at it earlier with the bookmark that Dad has, all that stuff. Why didn't they have Ryan Reynolds in the clown makeup? Because the joke that they go
point.
for is that Blue offers them a
handkerchief. Gross.
and they go, "Ooh, gross."
Yeah.
And okay, it's fine, right? It's a fun little button, and it ties back to some other stuff.
But it wasn't very
I love
funny.
callback humor. It wasn't funny. What they should have done instead, I'll tell you what the problem is. What they should have done instead is it spins back around. They have the moment. She hugs him. You know, he's holding out the balloon flower to her, and then he needed to look at her with that smile, and then go, "You know, I'm glad you remembered, but could you have just forgotten the makeup? Do you know how bad this itches?" You know, however Ryan Reynolds. I did a really good impression last night, and I thought it would come through here, and it did not. But
swing and a miss.
Like just you know, put him in clown makeup. That's the funny thing,
right?
That's the funny face. Why aren't you doing that? And it gives him something where it's like between them, and it has nothing to do with Blue. And so yeah, I don't know, man. I just. It was like at every moment I felt disappointed about something else, and you know, I'm fully aware that there's the possibility that us as two fully grown men, well, one fully grown man and then me, we're overthinking it, right? We're reading too much into it. It's kids' movie, blah blah blah. But I don't think kids are stupid enough to not recognize this. Maybe they won't be able to articulate it. But I think they probably will be able to tell that something's
I've
off.
seen the parents on people's, or the look on parents' faces when they have come out of this, and it's like,
yeah.
And so they understand that this is not. And the kid comes bouncing out because he got a kid's packet, the thing, and it has a little toy on it. And you know they're.
That's why we didn't like it. Why didn't we get the toy?
I know. We should have gotten like the little bee or the bear.
I'd kill for a little bee. Oh well.
But yeah,
I just realized that sounds like a euphemism for something. I'm so sorry.
It's funny. It's funny that the look on people's faces I see when they come out of this, and I was worried about that going in to see it too, because I was like, okay, what am I missing?
Right. Yeah.
But I did like the tribute to Louis Gossett Jr. at the end because he is the voice of Louis.
Yeah.
And
spelled differently, by the way.
Right. And, you know, the guy was a great actor. And it's always, why is it the last film that a great actor does is always something that's not good? Because even like, you know, John Candy had Wagons East. That's Chris Farley, Beverly Hills Ninja. That's a real train wreck.
It's a funny title, though.
Yeah, but it's not a good movie by any means. Even for like a spoof or something that's meant to be very silly.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Yeah.
That trend continues. I would like to see somebody's last film actually be a good film.
Yeah. What was Robin Williams' last film? I think it was like, it wasn't World's Greatest Dad, but it was something like that. It was like something that was kind of it was called Boulevard. Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Plays a middle-class man in his 60s with a stable marriage and a desk job. So I think it was about like finding a reason to live with mediocrity being looked at.
That's kind of an
like
interesting thing to bring up because of his life and then him passing away.
Mm-hmm. Although he was not working a desk job.
No,
so
but
his life was, I would say, from the outside looking in, you know, we all thought, oh, this is anything but mediocre. But depression is not, man, it does not care what your job is.
No. And at least it wasn't Patch Adams. Because I hate that movie. I really do. And I think, you know, for the same reason that I brought up with the other actors and actresses that we have talked about, when Patch Adams came out, it was like the third film that he had done in a row, the same thing.
Yeah.
And I got very tired of it. So like when 1 Hour Photo came out, which was a complete departure from what Robin Williams was doing, that I really liked. And then Insomnia, either before that or after that, not to mention being a Christopher Nolan film.
Right, yeah.
You know, being a serial killer, which is something very different. And he has a bit part in...
Well, I don't know. If you're a medical professional, you probably feel the guilt of anyone you can't save. So is that not somewhat... Oh, no, you feel guilt. That is different. Never mind.
Yeah. But the other thing that he had done too, he was in a Kenneth Branagh movie that's uncredited called Dead Again. And it's a film noir shot both in color and black and white, going to a past life and going to the present day.
Interesting.
And it's very interesting. In Robin Williams' character, and that is a psychiatrist that's been kicked out of the business for unethical things that he did, and he's working in the meat department at a supermarket.
Nice.
And that Mike Church, who's Kenneth Branagh's character, comes back to kind of get some bearing on what he's working on at the time. And it's really good, but it's also, he's bitter, he's foul-mouthed, and it's not the typical thing that Robin Williams was doing at that time.
Well, and it's definitely the case that comedic actors can often play very serious roles much better than serious actors can do comedy.
Right.
Robin Williams was a great example of that.
Jim Carrey did that as well. The problem is the non-humoristic stuff that he did was not received very well.
Right.
And
I don't think it's because of his performance. I think it's because the scripts were nonsense.
The Majestic, I would disagree with you with that. The Majestic I really liked.
Okay.
And it deals with like the blacklist during that Hollywood period that nobody wants to touch.
Yeah.
And those films normally don't do very well, I think, because of that. But they're the two that I've seen, The Majestic and Robert De Niro did one called Guilty by Suspicion, that are both very good and dealt with that time in history in Hollywood that is unheard of.
The last time someone did something like that was Trumbo.
But Trumbo was actually a big success.
Yeah.
And I think mainly because of Bryan Cranston and the supporting cast of that, really carried that film, and it was a very good story.
Yeah.
But it kind of glosses over a little bit of the Hollywood blacklist too. It did not show the depression of it the way Guilty by Suspicion did.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's that balance between how much of the truth can we tell and how much can we hide to get the funding.
Right.
Yeah. I did want to. You brought up Lewis's character, and I wanted to loop back around to that because when she sits on the porch or on the boardwalk with him, and he's talking, and he's got that wonderful voice, and he's talking about how I just close my eyes and smell the sea breeze and everything comes back. But then he looks over at her, and I realize just how red that bear's eyes are. I was horrifying.
So it's almost like Five Nights at Freddy's creeped into the...
Yeah, it was like, that movie that came out called Imaginary? It was about a killer teddy bear imagination thing.
Yeah, which I completely avoided because it looked stupid.
This was way scarier than that.
Yeah.
The way scarier. I'm sorry, the red eyes and then just the creepiness of 45-year-old man going into the little girl's room and I don't know, man. You can do it. You can do those things and it's not creepy. Not the red eyes. The red eyes are... You should never make a teddy bear look like he's possessed by... Yeah,
because what is it, like Teddy Ruxpin when he got older?
Right. Or just... Is Pazuzu just trying out new vessels? I don't know. But... yeah, I don't know. I wanted to point that out because the eyes specifically was one of those things where I was like, how did you not see that this was terrifying?
Yeah. There was always that running gag in the 80s, too, when Teddy Ruxpin was popular, that it was like giving satanic messages and stuff to the children that the parents had bought this thing. There was always... I always thought it was funny, but I'm like, what is really on those tapes that they're putting into that bear?
Well, and you never know if someone on production line just slips one in. And it goes to one kid, and everyone else is, I love you. You're my friend. Let's play with crayons. And one just
let's play with knives. Let's kill mommy and daddy.
You see mom and dad's gun? You should use that on them. It says bang bang, and they'll be like, oh, good job.
And is it set in Amityville?
Say what?
Is it set in Amityville?
Could be. Whatever your heart desires. That's wherever. Amityville's wherever
going
evil
back
lurks.
to Amityville, New York, and the Amityville horror.
Yeah. I understood the reference, even though I haven't seen it.
Okay.
Yeah. I know. Hey, look.
And it's funny, Ryan Reynolds was in the remake of Amityville Horror.
That's right. I forgot about that.
It's not very good, but the original one's much better.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things I need to catch up on that
You've got years worth of homework to do as far as I'm concerned.
The list keeps growing. Every week I start adding things to the list because I have a list of movies that Hannah needs to watch because she hasn't seen most of the stuff that I've seen. And then I met you. And now the list is unfathomably
I'm sorry,
long.
I really don't do that intentionally.
No, it's okay.
I've seen more films than I think humanly possible, but...
Yeah, well, I mean... Look, man, if I wasn't capable of dealing with disappointing people, I wouldn't be in the entertainment industry.
No, that's true.
I was going to make a joke about my dad, but he's very supportive, and I don't want people to think he's not.
My dad's not, so... my dad still has the impression that I run a theater, but I sit around and watch movies all day, and I don't do anything else.
No, that's not true at all.
I try to really give him, no, Dad, this is a job. This is work. There's a lot of stuff that I do. I'm like, I wish I had time to watch movies sometimes. And I don't.
Yeah, no, man, the excuse I give a lot of the time, and it's somewhat valid, is that I did start my own business at 18. So around the time I started getting interested in a lot of those like more adult stuff, I didn't have time. I was trying to survive. I moved out and started working. I was working at Best Buy and then running my own business, and then I got married.
I get that. I did the same thing.
It was a brutal time, and then you just hit that point where you're just like, I just want something comfortable.
It took me a long time to break into management in the theater business because a lot of people saw me as a great, dependable employee when I was crew, but would never give me the shot. There was always something else or something that got in the way until I cornered somebody in an elevator at Cinemark going, okay, I saw that you just got rid of this female assistant manager who was worthless anyway. I'm like, I want my shot now. And I probably wasn't that aggressive, but I pled my case in a good way. And then they went back and looked at my employee file and go, yeah, we're kind of underusing you. I'm like, why didn't we realize that before? And then I got to where I am today, and I'm very fortunate.
I'm glad you're here because after I met you, I was just like, the podcast can happen.
Because once again, I'm about useless information.
The good news is you're not judgmental about it at all whenever I haven't seen something. So, I mean,
I roll my eyes and but I do that with my wife too. That goes, oh, well, I didn't know this even existed. And I'm like, yeah, not a shot. Or the funny part about that goes up because my wife's memory sometimes is about a millisecond long. And we'll watch something and then I'll see it a couple weeks later, or we get back to it again. Oh, this is a really good movie. I'm like, hon, we saw this like a year ago.
Right.
I'm like, this is not nothing new.
Yeah.
Or the best story I have about that is we went to another theater to a repertoire screening of Jaws. And Jaws is one of my favorite movies. Yeah. I still love it.
It's fantastic.
Right. It's very different from the book, but I think it's a fantastic movie. And if you know anything about that film getting made and the horrors behind getting it made,
it's incredible it exists.
Right, that it actually made it to the screen and became the definition of the summer blockbuster. So we went to see this, and she's like, okay, I've never seen this. I'm like, then what Jaws film did you see? I'm like, hopefully it wasn't
3.
Jaws the Revenge.
Yeah, The Revenge, yeah.
Although that seriously is almost kind of like a cult film now that there's actually a following behind.
Jaws 3D and Jaws the Revenge are getting Blu-ray releases.
4K.
4K Blu-ray releases, that's right.
All of them are, but
the fact that those are included, insane.
But the funny part, I've never seen Jaws 3.
I haven't either.
I've seen Jaws the Revenge. Sadly.
My condolences.
But it's Michael Caine too. Like
the main thing I remember about that movie is that Michael Caine said, "I've never seen the film, but I have seen the house that it built, and it's fantastic."
I just remember the one scene out of that film too that looks like they took one of those rubber tourist sharks that they sell at the souvenir stand.
Yep.
It looks like they threw it in the water and said, "Film."
Yep.
And that's exactly what it looks like. It's this like fake looking the mouth and the eyes, and nothing on it moves and just floats through the water. And I'm like, oh my God, this is bad.
Yeah. Well, we all make mistakes, including which I think.
Sadly to say for John Krasinski.
I'm trying to make a joke out of it, so it sounds like I'm being a jerk. But humor has a target. You can't anyway.
Right.
Look, If has not made back its budget yet, according to Wikipedia at least. $110 million budget.
It hasn't. It's very much underperformed.
Yeah.
I was expecting this to do better, and it's actually done pretty good here at Grand Avenue.
Yeah.
I expected more sellout crowds for it that it just did not get. And it seems like the films that have come out this May, every one of them has really underperformed too.
Yeah.
We thought Fall Guy was going to be this giant success. It wasn't.
Furiosa's tanked.
Tanked badly. Garfield's doing okay, but not sell out crowds.
But Furiosa's are right. And it was edging out. It was edging out Garfield, which is an insane thing to have.
Not
happen.
by much. It was
but
like
it was.
a couple of thousands of dollars.
Right, but the fact that it beat it at all as an R-rated film in a time when school is out and kids are out,
and then there's two family present films, if in Garfield at the same time.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
No.
So look, if you're avoiding going to the theater for some reason, you're wrong. Go to the theater,
right?
You know, like I definitely support Furiosa. I want another Mad Max movie. Although
we just saw that the next one has been kind of put on hold because Furious is not doing well.
Yeah. All right, well, let's jump into news then. I think that's the perfect segue.
Yeah, Warner Brothers just doesn't want to spend the money on it.
And that sucks because George Miller he's only got so much time left. He's 79.
Right, because when I saw him on stage in Vegas, he's using a cane. And I'm like, he's not going to be, unfortunately, not going to be around much longer.
Yeah.
And he's even outside of the Road Warrior and Mad Max films, he's done some really good movies.
He's a very visual director, and believes in visual storytelling over expositional dialogue, and we need that.
Yes,
we need it desperately. Although, if could have used a bit more expositional dialogue. So I guess there's a give and take.
The Road Warrior films, like I said in that podcast, that they are notoriously not dialogue-driven films. They are visual and action.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And Furiosa is probably the closest thing that we've gotten to that actually has development and storyline and everything in it that you don't really see in that series, and it's really cool to see that.
It feels like he found the balance, and now they're not going to let him do anything more. And that's very
sad. If I had the money, I would put up the money for him to make another one.
Yeah, me too. I think I wouldn't want to be on set. They seem horrible to have to work on.
Well, I'm
kidding. I would totally want to be there. Are you kidding me? Seeing how all that's done, I would freaking love that. Apparently,
I just want to be a stunt driver for the second in one of those cars.
Well, hey man, they'll do that. They won't pay you. There's a long-standing history of stunt drivers and truck drivers not getting paid on Mad Max movies. But there was one studio insider who was unnamed, but they said they believe the film suffered because Charlize Theron was not the lead actor in it. The insider said people who see the movie love it. The problem is getting them into theaters. She would have been able to do that. And so that's one person's opinion.
I would disagree with that because... Not to say that Anya Taylor-Joy is better than Charlize Theron. I think they're actresses on both the same caliber.
I think so too, and I think that Anya Taylor-Joy does have a box office draw.
Yeah.
Then again, though, if this studio insider has access, because somewhere in Hollywood there exists at least one list that is a ranking of this person will bring in this much money, and they've got it down to a science.
Well, but then again, too, she couldn't make Last Night in Soho more bankable than it was either. Yeah. And that's a shame because it is a really good movie, and it's Edgar Wright, who's one of my favorite directors.
I love Edgar Wright's work.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I don't know, man. It's disappointing to know that there's any sort of hold on getting Mad Max: The Wasteland done.
Yeah.
Because I desperately want to see it now, but oh well. Yep. What we are getting another sequel to is Venom. So there's only 5 months left before Venom: The Last Dance comes out.
If they keep that release date, because that's moved around quite a bit too, and now it's October 25th.
Okay, yeah,
which has stayed that way now for a couple of months. So I'm hoping that it sticks to that, because initially it was supposed to be over the summer, then it was Christmas. Then, or somewhere around like November, December.
Yeah.
Then some of those titles were starting to materialize, like what was going to happen with those, the holiday films, and now it's back to Halloween time, which makes more sense. Yes, but the problem is that like the last one that had Carnage should have been R-rated.
Yeah. Let There Be Carnage was one of my major disappointments for that year.
Yeah, it was.
Because I think Andy Serkis is incredible.
Yeah.
I think Tom Hardy's performance is unhinged and fun.
I think Woody Harrelson was the perfect casting for that role, too.
And it all felt like it kind of was hand waving away anything that would have made it interesting. It was the
kiddie version of that, and that's really sad because Carnage from the comic books is not kid friendly at all.
No, Carnage is. I mean, Venom is the ultimate Spider-Man villain, and Carnage is if you put that villain in a serial killer's head because that's what it is,
right?
And there's hints of it where you're like, oh, like a Prison Breakout scene where you're just like, okay, this can get crazy, and then they just pull right back off of that,
or be what materialize in Natural Born Killers with the prison scenes and that. Yeah.
There was so much that I wish would have been done, and I'm not someone who often is like, oh, give me the gore, give me the vulgarity, give me that.
It doesn't have to be that, but it can be something much more than what it turned out to be, which is the shame of that.
Yeah, I wanted Carnage to be sinister, not just evil.
Right,
and I think
relentless, and it wasn't.
Yeah. Oh well. Apparently, though, there's a trailer coming next week, and I thought it'd be interesting to ask you about this. Have you received a trailer? Can you?
No. Actually, most of the time, I see the trailers online before we get them here at the theater.
Oh, really?
because there's one coming for Moana 2 as well, which I'm not that interested in because I never liked the first one.
Maybe when they do the live action remake, which is happening, you'll be more interested then.
No, not really.
That movie about like that Disney movie about little children is not for you.
I really wanted to be excited about the first Moana too because for the most part I kind of like the Disney princesses except for Frozen. I can't stand that series. Yeah, but
you need to let it go, man.
Thank you for the pun on that. But
no one else will get the direct eye contact. That was just for you.
I really no, not. But for getting back on track, but for Moana, the stuff that's set in the South Pacific that does appeal to me. That those characters and those folk tales, it did not connect with me, and that's why I'm not horribly excited for a sequel. But I'm curious to see the trailer, as always. I was curious about the Mufasa prequel that's coming out.
Yeah.
And I
saw the trailer for that last night.
We have the trailer on that, and I'm a little excited for it. I just get upset when Disney says, well, we have these great original movies coming out, and they're not. They're prequels or sequels.
Yeah.
That how can you say that that's original? It isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's their original property, so like that's how they're skirting.
But it's not an original.
But it's not
idea.
a new idea. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And I got really mad at CinemaCon, and I wanted to call out the head of distribution for Disney when they have a movie coming out next year called The Amateur, and said it was this fresh original film. It's not. It's a remake of a film from the 80s. About a guy that's in the CIA, that his girlfriend is assassinated, and he goes into the field to find
That's
the
a Disney
killer.
movie?
Yes. Well, the original wasn't. It
Hold
was,
on.
It
No,
was
it would
20th
make-
Century Fox.
Okay, but the new one is Disney.
Right, because
And does it star gerbils?
No.
Dang it.
It's Remy Malek that's not taking on the role because when they said, well, it's a fresh, exciting original film that's coming out next year, and then I saw the title was The Amateur, I'm like, I wonder if it's the same one that I know of from the 80s. And they played the trailer for it, and I was like, it is. This is not an original film.
Yep.
I really despise that because you're saying it's an original movie, and it's not. It's a remake. Although I guess there's nobody old enough to really remember it or care.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that all marketing is lies. So
yeah, in this case, it really is.
Yeah.
Okay. But I nonetheless, I am excited to see that because I do like Rami Malek. I do like the story from the original film, and to update that with the technology and what the CIA is now, rather than what it was in the 70s and early 80s, it's still an exciting film to kind of wait for and see what happens.
Yeah, I might. Yeah. Okay. 2020. Yeah, that's the right one. Okay. Sorry, I looked up the IMDb page, and for whatever reason, it loaded without Rami Malek actually listed. And I was like, are there two? No,
he's in it.
No, it's just
because I saw the footage.
The internet is stupid and full of lies. Like, for instance, at the bottom of that page, it said The Amateur. It had 4 different things. It said doctors hate this one weird trick, and I don't believe any of them. Well, there is a trailer coming for Venom: The Last Dance. The British Board of Film Classification classified a 2-minute and 27-second trailer.
So it's not even a teaser; it's a full-length trailer.
Yeah, and,
which is weird because normally with those Marvel properties, they release some kind of teaser
trailer coming next week.
Yeah, and then several months down the line is the real trailer.
Yeah. Well, Daniel Rickman said that it would be released on Monday, so I'm not sure where he got the scoop on that. But it's expected to screen in front of Bad Boys Ride or Die, which hits the theaters on June 7th.
Yeah, which we're getting.
Yeah.
So like even too, like there is a second Beetlejuice 2 trailer now, which I've seen.
Yep.
We don't have it.
That's right. I was wondering. I saw that there was like they did the trailer that had the little like eyes going or the face that goes blah, just like in the first one.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm assuming that Warner Brothers is going to want that attached for The Watchers, which also comes out next week too.
Yeah.
So I would say for our next podcast too, I'm not interested in Bad Boys 4. It's going to be the exact
any of the other ones. So
unfortunately I have, and they're just about the same thing.
Okay.
And I got suckered into seeing the third one because I was working for AMC at the time, and we still had it when COVID was really starting to take shape and we were shut down.
Yeah.
So our jobs as managers at that point was generally to get the theater all cleaned up and ready to be shut down. And then the afternoon we'd pick a film and all watch it together as the manager group.
Yeah.
So, somebody really wanted to see that movie again, which I had not seen at all. And I'm not going to go against the other managers in that group because I liked and respected all of them. And they picked that, and I was like, okay. And I sit there and go, yeah, this is the exact same film as 1 and 2.
Okay, yeah.
So
I mean, why do something new when you can do the same and make money? So,
but it's
yeah. Well, the first 2 were Michael Bay, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel obligated to go watch them before we see the 4th one because that's what comes out that weekend, and that's the choice
honestly,
we have.
If you don't see the other ones, I don't think you're missing anything as far as like walking into a film that you haven't seen any of them. It's going to be the exact same thing as the other thing.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I'll get away with getting some work done on other things then.
Watchers? I do want to see.
How much of the third one was we're old and fat jokes?
Part of it.
And how much of the new one do you think will be about Will Smith not being allowed to slap anyone?
There's going to be at least one reference to that.
It's got to be.
And it's going to be more old and fat jokes because, now those characters are really
older
getting
and fatter.
Up there, right? And because that's even in the trailer that's out now about, Martin Lawrence going into a convenience store that's being held up, and he's trying to buy a hot dog and some Skittles and a Coke, and he's being told by Will Smith, no, you can't really do, and he's like, no, I need to get a ginger ale to settle my stomach, and he goes in there to buy this junk food, and so it's old and fat jokes again. And it doesn't hold water with me.
I mean, the thing is, every generation is reaching that point at some point, and at some point we want to see the heroes we had as kids dealing with the same things we did, when we're talking about like your Lethal Weapon or
no, but there's talks that there's a Lethal Weapon 5 in the works, and I don't know how.
I don't know. I think number 4 is the best one, and people hate that.
No, but I liked 4 because it didn't take itself very seriously, and it is what it is.
Well, and the other reason I liked 4 is because I thought when I watched it, I was like, that is one of the most healthy father-son relationships I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah.
Was how Danny Glover, interacted with his son and how he dealt with all the stuff with feeling like he was losing him and stuff. I was like, that was the most heartrewarming thing I've watched in like 4 years.
And at least it's better. 3 was the one that I didn't like that much.
Yeah, I don't remember 3 very well.
There's that whole thing with gang violence and Dirty Cops, and it's the story to it is not that good. It's very played down. And even Joe Pesci in it, that's the comic relief. That's definitely the best character that they introduced in number 2.
Yeah.
Is really not played to its strengths in number 3.
No, I don't think so. I had fun with all of them, but yeah, 3 was probably
it's the
4
least
was
memorable.
like, holy crap, this is good again.
Like number 2 is the one that's always memorable, and it's actually the one that I always go to now if I want to watch one of those films.
Yeah.
It's got the best action sequences. It's got a really good story that was timely for the time with South Africans being the bad guys.
Yeah.
And the opening sequence where they find out in the trunk of the one car is a whole bunch of cougar hunts that were illegal at the time to have in the States too.
Yep.
And Josh Ackland is like the ultimate like bad guy that's despised. And I really like seeing him in films after that. I was like, oh, that scumbag that was in like Lethal Weapon 2. Where even when he's not playing a bad guy, that's all I see.
Yeah. You got to love when someone gives a performance that ruins their career.
But the story to that was, it wasn't just action. It was actually a good story.
Yeah. No, I think the Lethal Weapon movies, like, I used to not understand why people were like, loved them so much, because I hadn't seen them. But then I think I watched them at the right point in my life where it was like, oh, I understand this. I really do. And yeah,
even the
fantastic.
first one has a good story too.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm. It's funny how action movies can also have an emotional through line. Anyway, Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer releasing next week.
I was like, was I supposed to laugh at that or not?
No, I was building up to something. It was what you'd call a dramatic
pause.
You son of a gun. I do actually have one more thing about Venom to just real quick talk about. Kelly Marcel is directing this one, who wrote Let There Be Carnage and co-wrote the first film with Jeff Pinker and Scott Rosenberg.
That doesn't sit well with me at all.
I feel... Yeah, I don't know.
So it's going to be another cartoonish, kiddie-friendly, evil film.
I suppose so. I mean, I understand the financial reasoning behind it and just being like, well, it's Venom and, like the adults love Venom and kids are like, they know who Venom is now again. And that's a big thing. It was like 90s Venom was huge and then it kind of dropped off and then, came back. And so I understand the financial reasoning behind it, but it is hampering what those movies could be.
I hate to say it though, but I probably will watch it just because I like Tom Hardy.
Well, I'm probably going to watch it just because we literally every week have to watch a movie in this purgatory we've chosen for ourselves.
I've read some really good things that it's another film we're getting later in June called The Bike Riders.
Yeah.
Which I have been told from our film buyer who didn't get to see it, but somebody in his office saw it and said it's Goodfellas meets motorcycles.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean...
And I was like, that already has my interest peaked.
I saw the trailer for that before Furiosa, and I heard
and
about
I put
it,
it
but
on there
watched
purposely.
It does look good, and Tom Hardy loves to do a voice you can barely understand.
Yeah.
He just loves it.
But it's also the kid that played Elvis is in that too.
Austin
and
Butler.
Jodie Comer, who's the female lead in that was in The Last Duel that I really liked. And she was also in Free Guy.
That's right. Yeah, she was.
Yeah. And she has a really cool role in that too. With that and Free Guy I really like too. Just because I'm not very much into video games, but I just thought it was a neat idea. And they did that very well, and I like Taika Waititi being the bad guy in that.
Oh gosh, I almost forgot about that movie, but yeah, it was fun. It was a fun movie.
Yeah,
I hope it's better. So do you remember that rom-com Isn't It Romantic with Rebel Wilson?
No,
where she like realizes she's in some sort of rom-com musical thing or something.
I try to forget like rom-com and Rebel Wilson in the same sentence because it, for most of the time, although she's done a drastic
she's
altercation in her appearance, and she should be commended for that.
Absolutely.
But those films that I don't remember it because it's probably disposable.
Well, then you might not find this as interesting as I thought you might, but it's getting a sequel called Isn't It Scary? And it's a takeoff on horror tropes, which is just horror movies nowadays, which are all just takeoffs on horror tropes. But
and then Paramount has revealed too that they're bringing the Scary Movie franchise back, which I was like, why?
Man,
because the last couple of ones that they did that were just so awful.
Yeah, that was a dark time. I remember not just that, but Vampires Suck. I remember seeing Vampires Suck.
Yeah, that one's bad.
Oh.
And I tried to like that too because it made fun of Twilight. Another series of, I hate to say this, but I've seen every one of those Twilight films, and they're all bad. And yes, and as far as I'm concerned, vampires do not glimmer in sunlight; they explode.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I worked on a vampire film when I was in Pittsburgh called Innocent Blood. That's actually it's a dark comedy, and the idea of it too is that, you know, mobsters are starting to be turned into vampires by this one female vampire that's running around Pittsburgh.
Oh, she bit me on the neck, man.
But Robert Loggia is the main like bad guy in that film, and you know, it's funny and it's good. Oh. And it makes like downtown Pittsburgh and Liberty Avenue, who's like the dirtiest, seediest part of Pittsburgh ever, make it look actually very attractive and good.
All right, 1992. Yep, I gotta go. Yep. I gotta go watch this now that I know you were on set. Especially like I gotta Innocent Blood, The Sopranos with vampires.
Yep,
that's yeah. Okay, well,
Anne Perlot too is the main vampire who her claim to fame was being the original La Femme Nikita that I really like that Luc Besson did.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I recognize her.
Yeah,
she's been in a bunch of stuff.
Another art house film that she did with Jason Lee, the guy that played Bruce Lee in Dragon, called Map of the Human Heart, and it's a World War II film, and it's really good.
Okay, yeah, I'm going down another rabbit hole. Yeah, isn't it scary's happening? That was all I wanted to. I just wanted to see what you might think about that.
Not much.
New Line Cinema has hired April Prosser, who earned her first writing credit on the Netflix romantic comedy Look Both Ways, to write the screenplay for that, so if anyone cares. Other than that, Chris Hemsworth is in talks to star in the Transformers/G.I. Joe crossover movie.
Yeah, I saw that.
As the villain, I hope.
Well, he's the voice of Optimus in this Transformers 1. Yep. When he wasn't called Optimus Prime.
He was Orion Pax.
Yes.
Yeah. I cannot really... I'm mad about Transformers 1 for one specific reason. When I watched Bumblebee, there's that sequence at the beginning that's all set on Cybertron. I just wanted more of that. Exactly that. That was it. That was what they should have been doing with this franchise. Freaking morons. And they... and now they've gone too far, and it's Kitty, and it's like the transforming, and I haven't read the comics, so, you know, bear with me here, but the transforming becoming like, oh, we got superpowers. No, that's what you do. You're Transformers. Like, it's so frustrating.
I hate to say this, but actually I kind of I was kind of against it too until I saw something for it. And I'm like, actually, it doesn't look that bad.
Well, it's not that the movie looks bad. It's just that seems like a trope they didn't need to adopt from superhero movies. Like, just freaking let them transform. Shut up. Forget about it.
It can't be any worse than the last couple of live action Transformers films. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, I haven't seen Beast. Is it not Beast Wars? It's Beast, Rise of the Beast, and
I haven't either. I dropped out once they linked it back to like the King Arthur days, and that film's terrible.
Whoever wrote that should be slapped.
Yeah.
Get Will Smith in the room with him.
And it's funny that I saw that movie at the Gatesville Drive-In solely because the second feature I really wanted to see, but it was the worst film to see at a drive-in, which was 47 Meters Down.
Yeah.
And I love shark films, even as stupid as they seem sometimes. And no, I have dropped out of the Sharknado series, but stuff like Deep Blue Sea.
Have you seen the sequel to 47 Meters Down?
Yeah, unfortunately I have. It's bad. It's like albino zombie sharks in like these ruins. It's terrible. But that first idea that they had for that seemed, very terrifying. But the problem is at a drive-in, there's so many dark underwater scenes, it is super hard to make anything out.
If there's even the slightest bit of light pollution, the screen's just washed.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
But I still
luckily, you
drive-ins.
don't have that issue at Grand Avenue Theater.
No.
Where it's not just dark, it's advanced dark.
But it's funny that our 4th of July drive-in movie this year is going to be...
Is it Jaws?
It is Jaws.
Yes!
And the sad part about it is I'm not going to be here. I'm leaving for vacation.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, And one of the ideas I had for that too was like having little kiddie pools for everybody by their cars.
Yeah.
And then the more we thought about it, is like, no, that's kind of a liability issue waiting to happen.
That.
But I wanted like the Jaws in the Water thing to kind of have that attitude, but no, but
I tell you what, it does sort of like for that kind of movie, it increases the terror. If you're in the water, I'll never forget the experience of seeing part of Madagascar 3 Most Wanted in the pool, because I was terrified I would drown myself. But
you weren't all about the polka dot circus, dots.
I mean, is it stuck in my head forever? Absolutely. Do I want it to be there? No. Why can't I remember my bank account details now? It's pushed out the wrong thing.
See, my son loves that film.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of the same way. It's like, no, this is not good.
You know what the problem I had with it was?
What?
They gave up on animating the environments. Every chance they got in Madagascar 3, it's a black void. It's completely devoid of any sort of actual like environment to save on animation.
I didn't even think of that, to be honest.
I didn't, when I was watching it, I didn't know what was bothering me about it, but then I saw a bit of it at on the TV at Walmart like 3 weeks later. It was like, there's no environment. They didn't animate a world. It's just, I guess this part's in their memory, and this part is all about them being in the spotlight. So let's not have anyone else in the background. And it's like, that's not how it works.
Right.
But anyway. Okay, I have one more piece of news. But it's not so much news as it is a fun little kind of Easter egg tidbit factoid from years ago.
Okay.
Do you remember the movie Scream 4?
Yeah.
Okay. I would just like to tell you that Aubrey Plaza auditioned and was told she looked too insane to play the killer.
That's funny. That really, because actually I don't mind Aubrey Plaza. I don't either. She was in a film that I saw not that long ago on Netflix. I can't remember the name of it now, where she was working for like drug cartel people doing fake fraudulent credit card transactions.
What was that?
It was Emma the Criminal or something like that. And it was really good. It's not a long movie either. Yeah. It's like an hour and 25 minutes, so short and sweet.
According to some people, the perfect amount of time for a movie to be.
Yes. I still say hour 40. Hour 40. Yeah. Not to mention, hour 40 is the perfect runtime for me. I can come up with showtimes like off the top of my head immediately. Yeah. Because I did that with Watchers. Like when we got that in and I could put the tickets on sale, I literally just banged that out in like 5 minutes.
Yep. It gives you just that perfect amount of time to clean in between. And yeah. It was called Emily the Criminal. You were
Emily
correct.
the Criminal. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Or you were mostly correct. I can't remember what you said.
I think I said Emma, not Emily, but I was close.
I'll just go back and edit in the "l," and then you'll be right.
Okay,
that's right. I'm going to put work into this episode.
It's a decent film, though, if you get to see it.
All right, cool. Add it to the list.
Yeah.
All right, maybe we should call this podcast Building the List. All righty, well, that'll do it for us this week, I think. If, sadly, a big disappointment for me, I really hope the next thing that John Krasinski does is better. And I have no hope for Venom. I will be seeing it, though, just to see how bad it can be.
Yeah. So. Me too.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us here on the show.
Yes.
If you listen to this all the way through, get yourself a cookie. You deserve it. And if you didn't make it all the way through, we don't care what you think because you're not here to listen. So how about that?
Well, everybody walking by the party room here at Grand Avenue Theater has always been fascinated, like because we've recorded these now like 2 days in a row here, and everybody just kind of like, well, what are they doing? And so that's
we get a lot of looks by people walking by, and I realized about the third time. The first couple times we recorded, I was faced to the wall. I never saw anyone behind me. You were the only one who saw anybody.
Right.
And then the last couple times we've done it where we're facing where we can both see out the windows, and I just started to feel like an ape on display.
Yeah, people kept looking at us like it's Jurassic Park and like, okay, where's the Velociraptor at?
One guy started gesturing at me, I guess, to follow him into the theater. I don't know what that was about, but he started doing this little hand wave thing behind him, and I was like, is your hand a fish? Are you trying to tell me to come with you? I don't know.
Yeah, even though I'm not, I work here, I'm not coming in to look at that right now.
Well, in any case, thanks for listening. We really do appreciate
thank you.
everyone who
We
listens. We hope that at the very least, if you do decide to see that you see it and you can kind of look at it as a storyteller and
try to keep an open mind. Like, don't
Yeah.
let us influence on you for not going to see it. Like,
Right,
keep an open mind. Keep your own perspective on these things. We're giving our opinion, and that's it.
And hopefully that makes for an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's no way you're hearing this bit. All right, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye. Take care, y'all.